What is going on, Sports Wars? We're here, we're live, and we're 3 hours early for Against the Spread here on Wednesday evening. But we wanted to make sure we brought a show to you guys tonight. And as always, our schedules are kind of all over the place. We figured may as well do it a little bit early. And Robert, we can obviously tell you're on the road. You're not in your nice, comfy leather chair. How you doing, man?
Good. Doing here in Nashville, Tennessee, then over to Knoxville a little bit later in the week, where they registered the noise from the game that cricket was at on the various earthquake meters that took place this past week in Knoxville. So you can still feel the vestigial effects of that. So that was a extraordinary game. Great game to be at. Perfect game to be at.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we went live just about like some of the very unique games we've been to. Obviously, cricket, you were at that game. Tennessee over Alabama. They flood the stadium. They tear the field goal post down. Just absolutely incredible atmosphere. What was it like for you?
Man, what a super electric atmosphere all over the place. I mean, fans from both sides having a great time, just a great football game. I've been on the wrong end. I was there when we lost to Oklahoma. I've been there when we lost to Oregon, wrong end of a couple of Georgia games. But first time I really got to walk out of that stadium with my head held high. And it was just a super cool experience, man. I will not soon forget for sure.
Absolutely, man. That is awesome. So thank you for being here. And of course, joining us as always. What's up, Cody?
Doing well. Unfortunately, was not able to attend any games this weekend. Kind of sat at home, watched them by myself, but say la vie, but I'm glad to be here.
There you go. Hell yeah. I was not able to go anywhere either. So we're in the same boat there. I was actually sick as a dog on Sunday. Like Saturday, I started getting sick. Then Sunday, I was just sick all freaking day. It was terrible. So I just laid there and watched football. Didn't make any videos. Just sat there and took it in for what it was worth. But with that being said, before we get into this week's upcoming matchups, why don't we talk a little bit about last week? Were there any bad beats we had last week, Robert?
Absolutely. In fact, some fantasy owners got hammered. Some over bettors got hammered. Some team total bettors got hammered because it was like the Rams from years ago. Saquon Barkley got the ball a little bit under a minute left, going right into the end zone. And because he knew the Ravens didn't have any timeouts left, slid right at the goal line. And by doing so, he kept the game under. He kept the Giants different bets depending on where you had him unders. And he also took away fantasy points from his fantasy owners. So it was the bad beat of the week for tons of people, bettors and fantasy players alike.
Yeah. And we are, of course, we're all watching, eagerly anticipating this big Monday night matchup between the Broncos. Now, depending on where you got the Broncos, they probably did cover for most people, right?
Yeah, so I had them on a teaser at 11 points, so that was an easy cover the whole game, given that they weren't even ahead. That is the Chargers until the very end, to the last play of the game, actually. Yeah, we'll leave it to the Broncos to find a new way to lose. Paul Hackett is finding ways to get himself fired. But but most of the spreads were 4, 4.5, 5, up to 6, depending on where you got it. So all the spreads covered. It's a little bit of a tough beat if you had them on the money line, as I did. A little bit of a tough beat if you had them going over 19 points, as I did. So those were the tough ones, especially given. I still wonder about how they interpreted that rule. So the rule for kick interference is if you, as the kicking team, do anything to interfere with a player who's signaled a fair catch.
Correct.
And here, they grabbed the blocker and threw him into the guy. And it's like, that's not being blocked into it. That's really not his own player. But,
so the breakdown that I heard live on air was that, yeah, you can't do that. You can't just like take a guy and chuck him and shove him into the kicker. But if the blocker is the person who initiates the contact, then all bets are off. And that's what happened. The blocker was standing there, and he was the one that first reached out to block the defender who's just kind of standing there. And that was
throw the guy into it to interfere with it. That it's one of those exceptions. I remember years ago when Randall Cobb was the kick came down, and Randall Cobb put one. It was going to land right at like the 3-yard line, so the Packers were going to have to start at the 3. And Randall Cobb put 1 foot out of bounds and then touched the ball, and he knew the rule. That made it out of bounds and gave them ball like the 25 or the 30 or something. And it was like, it's another one of the. I mean, credit to the Chargers player who either he got lucky or he knew the score. Now, if you're an NFL professional special teamer, he probably got lucky. But he may know the rule. He may know, hey, by the way, let that guy make contact with you first, and then you can throw him into the fair catch guy. But it was of all the ways to lose, that was a little bit rough.
And I think it was like only the second time in his career Justin Herbert didn't throw for a touchdown. Now, I mean, that Denver team has not been allowing very many passing touchdowns. So, but yeah, weird game.
I'm going to say under discussed is actually the Broncos defense has been pretty good this year. It's even that game against Seattle, which people thought Seattle's offense stinks. Well, now since that game, Seattle's offense has been mostly good other than the San Francisco game. The Broncos defense has actually come to play this year. It's the $250 million quarterback and the big fancy coaching hire that have not.
Well, when you look at that, like the Chargers were like smothered all night. The receivers were smothered. They couldn't really get much of a run game going. They were relying on 3 yards on first down, 3 yards on second down, find some way to sneak out a 4 or 5 yard gain on third down. And it was pretty crazy the way they were sustaining these drives because that Broncos defense was very, very aggressive. And the Chargers just have a ton of injuries offensive line. They just couldn't protect Justin Herbert for shit.
Now, what the most significant thing about, of course, the Broncos game is we are still undefeated here on our free picks on against the spread because the Broncos did, in fact, cover. The Saints were either a push or a win 2 weeks before. So we're yet to lose. Anybody who took the bet of the week, free bet of the week here, given out against the spread, is yet to lose.
And that was I think it was a 4-point spread when I saw it. So it's probably right around what it was for most people. So there you go. Got to tune in. You got to tune in the free picks here on Against the Spread. But with all that being said, let's get into this week's slate of games. First one, Thursday Night Football. Let's pray to the gods that this Thursday Night Football game is better than the ones we've seen before. Certainly has potential to be higher scoring. The Saints versus the Cardinals. Now it's the 2-4 Saints versus the 2-4 Cardinals. But I got to imagine we'll see a little more scoring than we have lately.
I'll be curious whether Jameis Winston is finally back for the Saints. You got two underperforming quarterbacks and to some degree underperforming teams this year. So the expected scores, Arizona's favored by 2, total of 44. So basically 23-21 Arizona. It's interesting that Vegas won't increase the Saints team total, even though they've been covering that team total, going over and over and over. They won't adjust it. It's like they look at the Saints and they see an average offense. They don't see a good offense. We'll see if it keeps going that direction. 2/3 of the money so far, 2/3 of the cash in the public is on the Arizona Cardinals. The over-under is about evenly split, probably because of that really low Arizona game total against Seattle. If anything, looking at this, I would lean over, and I would lean. I don't know if I would. I wouldn't lean either side. I would want to know whether Winston's going to play. The Saints' offense, if they get everybody back and healthy, has been good, and even without all those guys healthy, they've been putting up 24, 26, 23 points. So they haven't been unable or incapable of putting points up on the board. At least this shouldn't be as ugly as our most recent night games have been.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Cardinals in this one. I look for this team to turn around. There's so much talent out there around those guys, around Kyler Murray and company. I mean, there's a lot of talent there. They're going to get DeAndre Hopkins back. I'll let Cody talk about him in just a minute. But I just look for this team to show up. It's going to be a short week. You got to travel for the Saints, stuff like that. I'm just, under a field goal right here, I think you're okay taking the Cardinals. I look for them to turn around at some point, and I think getting DeAndre Hopkins back is going to help make that offense a completely different offense that we've seen so far. So I'm going to have to lean toward the Cardinals this one, -2.5. And anything under a field goal, I think you're okay with.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Getting Hopkins back is huge for Kyler Murray. If he can get back to playing some of that backyard football, that Roethlisberger type run around and find DeAndre Hopkins open. This guy who's coming back after 6 week suspension, already slated in his first week back as a top 10 wide receiver, slated to get 14 points or more and throughout different leagues. I like the Cardinals here, and I like the over too. It's kind of weird that they keep that so low. Again, with the Saints, but also, with Hopkins coming back and looking for more scores out of Arizona.
Yeah, I think with the Saints, you have had, Dalton come in there and play serviceable. They've been in a lot of these games and they've had some opportunities. When it comes to the Cardinals, between the underperformance and between the injuries, like these running backs for the Cardinals, I think we talked about it before the season when you looked at fantasy projections. Like there was no way James Conner was going to stay healthy for a very long time. And sure enough, he did not. And so now they're kind of scrambling in a lot of places right now. Will Robbie Anderson play? I guess we'll see. Maybe he'll like the sideline there a little bit better than he did over in Carolina. But moving on to the first Sunday afternoon game, the 3-3 Falcons, coming off a good performance last week against the 49ers, headed to the Cincinnati Bengals to play the 3-3 Bengals.
Yeah, basically, Vegas predicts a 27-21 score in favor of the Bengals. Cincinnati favored by 6, total of 47, 47.5, 48. Everybody's hammering the over in this one, which is interesting. I assume it's because of Atlanta's recent over totals that is the case, and because Cincinnati's coming off the high-scoring game in New Orleans. The public's pretty evenly split in terms of the spread, but they're hammering the over, and on the money line, there's a split. The cash is on Atlanta, but the tickets are on the Bengals. So, and looking at, I think this spread is a little high. It all really depends on whether you think Atlanta's the real deal. Is Mariota now? Atlanta's yet to fail to cover in the NFL this year. They demolished the San Francisco 49ers, won by 14, had a 14-point lead most of the game. When you look at that, they should be getting some more guys back as well. Whereas Cincinnati's been one of the 5 worst offenses in the league. They did get a couple of big plays against the Saints when they needed it. That's because they decided to man up against Jamar Chase late in the game, which was kind of crazy. I'm not yet a believer that this Cincinnati team is the kind of offense it was last year, whether it was the surgery offseason, whether it's the Super Bowl loser curse. And I think Marcus Mariota is back to playing decent football. And so I would lean Atlanta in this game if I had any lean, no lean otherwise.
Yeah, I'm going to lean with the Dirty Birds, man, until I can't. They've looked good all year long. Like I said, looking at like plus 6.5 right now, probably buy the hook up to a touchdown. But this Bengals team is just outside of a game against the New York Jets have not looked great, man. They've had to battle in every single game they've played in to really have a shot to win it toward the end, which, I mean, that says a lot of resilience about that team and about Joe Burrow and some of those guys. And I know they're a good football team, but I'll tell you, the Atlanta Falcons have looked good. Marcus Mariota has been put in situations in that offense to really make things happen. And, they look to get Kyle Pitts a little bit more involved last week. I look for that to continue to progress and maybe look to get him the ball more, especially in the red zone. But I like the Falcons right here. Getting the 6.5, I think that's far too many points. I think I would buy the hook up to 7 so a touchdown saves you. But, yeah, I'm all over the Dirty Birds right here.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game comes down to the offensive line play, and for the Bengals, it's just not there, even with their upgrades. And Atlanta's offensive line has played really well in allowing Marcus Mariota to play kind of fear-free. I think that was kind of his problem after that bad line he had in Tennessee, getting hurt so often, just getting crushed. He kind of played with a lot of fear, and now that he's playing fear-free football again, he's kind of having fun with it, and you kind of see that out on the field with him. So I think fantasy-wise, if you've drafted Kyle Pitts early, hang on to him. I think he's going to start showing some of that upside that you saw early on. And then Drake London continues to be a good asset to hang on to as well.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is just that dude can be an absolute monster in this league if he's put in the right spot. And if he can stay healthy and he's put in the right spot. So we'll see how that goes.
I really wish they'd figure it out.
Yeah, I know. And now another one.
Kyle Pitts owner.
Oh, it does sound like I had him last year, and he did exactly what I needed him to do last year. So he was great at times for them last year, which is what I needed. Another 1:00 game, Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, after not playing last week, had a bye, heading down to Dallas to play the Cowboys. Cooper Rush, fresh off his first loss.
And I guess the story is that Pat Prescott's going to play in this one. Cody, do you know?
Yeah, that's what it appears to be right now.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, it explains the line. The line is Cowboys by 7, total of 49. So they're basically predicting 28-21. They're expecting the Cowboys to return to the kind of offense they had at times last year and expecting the Lions to return to the kind of offense they had last year, which is interesting. About evenly split in terms of the tickets, in terms of the line and the total. On the money line, there's a lot of early action on the Cowboys that people don't think the Cowboys are going to lose this game coming off the loss to Philadelphia last week. So that's interesting. I would say this is all about how much confidence you have in Dak Prescott and how much confidence you have the Lions or the offense you saw at the beginning of the season, not the offense you saw in New England 2 weeks ago or the offense you saw last year. Because if you think the offense is a decent offense, 7's a little high. And if you think Dak Prescott isn't, there's really issues there that Cooper Rush more exposed than anything else in the sense of his performance through a lot of those games, then you would lean Lions in this game. I would either lean Lions or pass would be my view.
Yeah, I don't have a big lean in this one. I think if I got one, I've got to lean toward the Lions right here. They've showed me enough so far to be able to play in games. I think giving them a touchdown is far too much. Even if Dak does come back, how much rapport does he have with his receivers in that offense? Is he 100% healthy? I feel like they're kind of rushing him back from that. I had a similar injury to that back in the day, that thumb, and those thumbs are nothing to play with, man, especially trying to grip an NFL football and put some mustard on it. I don't know how healthy he's going to be, and I think they might be kind of rushing him back a little soon. But, I also think that team's looked better with Cooper Rush at the helm so far this year than Dak has. So, I'm going to lean with this Lions team right here, getting the 7. Don't have a strong lean, but I just think 7 points is too much to give either team in this spot.
Yeah, Cody, I noticed that Dak Prescott was projected to have better fantasy stats than Aaron Rodgers this week, and I was curious about that. Seemed counterintuitive to me.
Rodgers has not been doing so hot. He's not. Like I said last week, I think they're really committed to figuring out that passing game. Like they have a better run game. They're not using it. They could check down more to the running backs with passes that they're not doing. And I think that's because they're fully committed to trying to get the most out of figuring it out with these wide receivers because they know they can't win a championship without it. So as long as that continues and until they get it figured out, I think you'll start seeing things like that, which is, again, shocking for me. I have Aaron Rodgers in almost all my drafts. He's been a top 5 quarterback. I repeat that. It's my favorite stat about him. But, yeah, half my league names are named Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So I'm in bad shape right now. But that continues to be an issue. And in this game, I have a hard time seeing it be that far apart. Amon-Ra St. Brown's coming back. He was full practice today. DeAndre Swift was limited in practice, but he's probably going to be back. I think, being beat up the way they were last week with no Chark, no Reynolds. I mean, they had no one to throw to, and then Swift being out as well. I mean, they were just in with some of them being back.
And Belichick turned around and did the same thing to Jacoby Brissett the next week. If you're not a quality, consistent, high-performing quarterback, Belichick's back to being Belichick.
Right.
And I think one of the questions you do have to ask was, did Bill Belichick do anything to that team, to what they had been doing offensively, that's going to make some other people wake up? We saw it happen with Jared Goff when he was with LA. After that Super Bowl performance, all of a sudden, they just weren't the same team because people started replicating some of the things Belichick and that defense did against them. So how will it play out in this game? I guess we'll see, especially with a talented Detroit or Dallas Cowboys defense as well.
Yeah, so it's amazing how good Micah Parsons is.
When you have
that rare elite pass rusher like Khalil Mack was at times for the Bears back, a couple of years ago, those guys single-handedly converted because Dallas was a below-average defense a lot last year. You can single-handedly elevate them into a good defense.
Yeah, when all of a sudden you have a game wrecker and you have to put so much emphasis on that, it changes everything. Makes you have to get rid of the ball faster. These the DBs don't have to cover for as long. So you got people out there like Diggs that can they gamble a lot as it is, but maybe when you're making some of these gambles, you don't get burnt as often as he did last time because there's just not as much time.
Yep.
But moving on to another team that had a bye week last week. The Colts are visiting the Texans. The Colts, who are now a countdown 3-2-1, facing the 3-2 Titans.
Yeah, you got the divisional matchup here in Nashville. Tennessee's favored by right under 3 points, 2.5, 42.5 total. So basically they're thinking 23-20 Titans. So they're not convinced that Matt Ryan's performance last week is a sign of anything that he will be able to sustain over the rest of the season. I share that same skepticism. Public leans a little bit towards the Colts, but nothing major. Leans a little bit towards the under, interestingly enough, probably because of issues with the Colts and the Titans' style of play tending itself towards the under. I think the Titans have some guys still out for this. The money line leans heavily towards the Titans early on in terms of the public betting pattern. My own instincts, I think the line is about right. I would lean a little bit towards the Titans, though. It's either Titans or pass for me.
Yeah, I like the Titans right here. I think they're really starting to right that ship. They're starting to get Derrick Henry the ball more. Really controls that offense, controls the tempo of the game when they can get him rolling. The Colts just haven't fared well in this series of late. They're 0-4 against the spread in the last 4 heads-up meetings, and the favorite is 14-6 against the spread in the last 20 meetings in this series. And the Titans just look better, man. They just look better on the field, in my opinion. The Colts have won some close games against some good teams, but I thought both of those teams looked pretty bad in those games. So I think going to Nashville right here in a division game, I like the Titans right here. Anything under a field goal, I think you're okay with.
Yeah, the Titans are still missing some of that defense, but they're getting some guys back. Bud Dupree, Amani Hooker maybe coming back this week. They were both full practice today.
And the rookie wideout, is he still out?
Oh, he's out. Yeah,
he might be out for the year. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Derrick Henry has been getting into the passing game. And hasn't he got like a touchdown almost every game? Like fantasy-wise, he's still doing okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, he only had one game where it was, he had like 8 or 9 points, and then everything else has kind of been expected, 16, 20, 24. So he's done decently well in that regard, even with his low per game yardage average in the first couple of games. He still had touchdowns to kind of make up for that point wise. The one thing I will say is they've been kind of turnover prone lately, and the Colts have gotten like 11 turnovers this year, so that could become an issue with them and maybe a possible pickup for the Colts defense.
Now another game that should be interesting, to say the least. The Green Bay Packers, the 3-3 Packers, with an Aaron Rodgers who does not look like the Aaron Rodgers we're used to seeing, visiting the Washington Commanders. Without Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke will be the starting quarterback. At least that's what I believe Ron Rivera announced a few days ago. Man, what's this one looking like, Robert?
It's fascinating. It's the Packers are favored by 5.5 on the road, very low total, 41.5. The public is, despite that, hammering the under even further, and this is because of some at least surprising, given early season expectation unders in Packer games, including that crazy under in the Packer-Tampa game. So that was already very low to start with. Now, that was partially quarterback wide receiver injuries, but you look at statistically, that game should have gone way over. Public's evenly split on the Packers and the Commanders in terms of either the money line or the points. So their only real public lean on the game is the under. 5.5 is a lot for the Packers to cover on the road. There's a history of first-time quarterbacks within a season or backup quarterbacks within a season covering a spread. He actually arguably was better than Carson Wentz. I mean, if you look at their career stats with Washington comparatively. So 5.5 is probably a little on the high side, but I don't want to bet against Aaron Rodgers coming off back-to-back losses.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean with the public on this one. I'm gonna lean under. I think I'm probably gonna ride the Packers unders until they burn me on one of them, just because that offense has not looked very good this year. And he's still got a lot of questions at wide receiver. I think Randall Cobb's going to be out for the coming weeks now. He got hurt last week with an ankle or something like that. And you got the unders 4-0 in the Commanders' last 4 games overall, and 7-1 in their last 8 home games. I just haven't seen enough from either one of these offenses. The Packers, both these defenses have looked respectable enough at times, and I look for this to be another kind of close game here, where kind of hard hitting football game where they're banging it out down late. Somebody wins it by a field goal late, something like that. But I don't see these two teams getting over the 41.5 right here. I just don't see that right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the Washington passing defense has not looked that great, but I don't think that's going to matter against this Green Bay team who can't seem to figure out how to pass the ball, even though that's all they're doing. But yeah, I like the under here as well. And stay away from any players in Green Bay as far as fantasy is related until they get it figured out, because they're refusing to run the ball, where Jones would be, or Dillon either, are great RB1 or flex position starts. We're not getting week-to-week consistency out of that because they're refusing to give the ball over enough.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough for Washington. I do think, with Aaron Rodgers coming off a couple of bad performances, and the fact that this defense doesn't force turnovers. They forced 3 turnovers in 6 games. Like, that's all the Washington Commanders have done. And, at least one of those was last week with the Justin Fields interception. So I don't know how they're going to really hang in, unless Taylor Heineke does just keep it close. And he's kind of a wild card. He really is. He's a guy everybody wants to root for. He's a guy that gets the team behind him. So who knows what can happen with him back there. Now another team that has been struggling with a veteran quarterback who's been under fire lately, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, They might be lucky as hell that this is on their schedule right now. The 1-5 Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I don't know if Baker Mayfield's going to be back because, I mean, they only scored 3 offensive points last week with that former Temple guy who only made his roster position with the Panthers because he played for Matt Rule when Matt Rule was a coach at the Temple. So Tampa's big road favorites again, despite losing last week outright as a big favorite against the Steelers. Favored by 11, very low total, 40.5. So they're basically predicting something like 25-14, 26-15, something like that. So they're still expecting Tom Brady to get his, despite, all the controversy over this past week about whether he's enjoying the game anymore and so forth, just because he got a little upset on the sidelines at a bad loss at Pittsburgh. The public has no strong lean on the game one way or the other, at least early. Except for the over. So some of the early that's because it's such a low total at 40.5 with a game that at least has Tom Brady on one side. But Carolina has failed to break 16 points in back-to-back weeks, and if Baker Mayfield's not on the field, it's hard to see how the backup is going to get them there. I just think double digits on the road is a lot. Now, in recent years in the NFL, teams have been covering that number. Because Vegas has really nailed it. Something more than 10 on the road, surprisingly, has been a winner. But I can't take it right now, not with Tampa having some of the problems they have.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues on that offensive line. You see Tom Brady on Sunday really going off on his offensive linemen over there on the sidelines and stuff, and they just have a lot of issues, man. I don't really know what's going on down there. I don't know if it's some internal stuff or what, but being a Buccaneers fan, you just can't be happy seeing what we've seen from them thus far. And I don't know that, 10.5 just seems like too much for them to be giving anybody in any game right now. I don't care if it's at home, on the road, or where it's at. They just don't seem like the type team that's going to blow the doors off and really stretch a game out. It seems like no matter what, no matter how much they get up early in the game, they're still going to let a team back in it. This is a division game. You got so many question marks for the Panthers. So, if I got any kind of lean at all, I'm going to lean toward the under just based on what I've saw from both these offenses so far this year. But I don't have a strong lean in this one just because there's, once again, with the Panthers game, there's too many question marks up in the air, and I don't know what we're going to get come Sunday.
Yes, I'm staying away. I'm running the other direction as fast as I can. And from a fantasy standpoint, same thing. DJ Moore's been inconsistent in Carolina. You haven't had any reliable quarterback play. The injuries there are just horrible. You got Tampa Bay. The only one who's really been consistent down there has been Fournette. Brady's managed to get his points for the most part. He's only had a couple of bad weeks, even though it's looked much worse watching the games. But none of the receivers have had a massive amount of consistency. So yeah, it's tough. If you can replace them, it's hard to because you'll have drafted them high, so it's hard to find value from them off the waiver wire. But if there's possible to do that, that's what I would be suggesting doing this week.
From a fantasy perspective, where would McCaffrey best go?
In a draft today?
No, like if he gets moved, because there's a lot of trade rumors surrounding him.
Oh, okay.
So, if you're out there and you're thinking about maybe I'll grab him, not because I think he's going to do great with the Carolina with where they're at, but I think if somebody smart grabs him, his fantasy value could spike.
If you toss a trade out right now in your league to somebody who might be a little bit low on CMC with the potential of an upside.
The problem with that is he's done well enough this year that people are going to be hesitant to let go of him, and they're probably going to have that same idea. So that's kind of but I think there's a lot of teams out there that he can go to that he would just instantly be improved. There's also a lot of teams you go out there and instantly end his season and or career because the guy is super injury prone.
Well, yeah, you got to look at teams like Denver or maybe even the LA Rams. Some people like that have had some real running back issues so far. Some teams that have the ability to have some electrifying offenses. They got some playmakers around their quarterbacks that are very capable if they are able to get some time in the pocket and stuff like that. So I think a place like Denver, maybe even LA, maybe even a place like Arizona, you got some places that you can look at that have enough weapons, enough trade value to be able to get somebody like him. So just teams like that really struggle at the running back position and really need somebody to step that up a notch.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting if he moves. He could be a game changer wherever he ends up. Now the 5-1 New York Football Giants heading to the 2-4 Jacksonville Jaguars at 1:00.
Jags are favored by 3 at home, total of 42. So they're basically predicting something like 23-20, 22-19, something like that. Team totals will be around there for the Jags and the Giants. The tickets are overwhelmingly on the Giants. People are pumped about the New York Football Giants. The Jags are coming off back-to-back losses, though they had a last-second loss at Indianapolis last week. Trevor Lawrence actually looked pretty good in that game. The defense fell apart. Total at 42 is not getting much action one way or the other so far. No real lean. If I were to lean anything in this game, it would be towards Jacksonville, just because I'm still not convinced the Giants are for real.
Yeah, I'm with you there. What a game that we didn't think was going to matter for anything at the start of the season. Turns out it's got some playoff implications in it and stuff. And Jacksonville looked pretty bad at home a couple weeks ago against the Texans. That was probably the worst game they played this year. But they normally fare pretty well at home. So I don't know that I can. I feel like that's a little high, given a field goal there, man. I'd like to be able to buy it down under a field goal to maybe be convinced to take the Jaguars, but I'm probably going to lean toward the under in this game, just because I think this is going to be another one of those hard hitting games where, it comes down to the wire. Maybe a team wins it by a field goal toward the end, maybe 20-17, something like that. I could see that happening. 21-14, any of those games, get you under. So if I got to lean in this one, I'm going to lead under the 41.5 right here.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to roll with Jacksonville. I know they've lost 4 games, but they've looked really good in doing. They've lost by 7, and 8 in 3 of those games, which is a lot. And the Giants, though, they're one of the surprises of the season for sure.
Love Brian Daboll.
But I look for Jacksonville to kind of bounce back at home here and pull out another win, actually.
Yeah, they definitely do. After what we saw from them the first couple of weeks, I think a lot of people expected more since then. So we'll see what happens at home. Not that that's necessarily the best home field advantage down there in Jacksonville.
Right.
Another 1:00 game, the struggling Cleveland Browns, who do have Deshaun Watson back in the building, along with another allegation, but he's still not playing yet. They're heading to Baltimore to play, again, a Ravens team that I think has been a little bit disappointing this year.
No doubt disappointing, especially if you're Lamar Jackson and this is your contract year. So the Ravens are favored by 6 at home against the team that they from the city that they abandoned in that historic rivalry, total of 45.5. So they're basically thinking 26-20 Ravens, which suggests that the Vegas is not sold on Jacoby Brissett after Belichick exposed him last week. Before that, Brissett had been overachieving, and Browns still have one of the better run games in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to watch this matchup. The public leans a little bit towards the Ravens. They lean heavily on the over. I don't know if I would lean in that direction. I would actually lean on – if I had any lean on this game, I think the line probably isn't far off. It depends on really what you think about Lamar Jackson and Jacoby Brissett. If you think Lamar is going to get back to normal Lamar, you probably bet the Ravens. Or if you're a skeptic of Brissett, if you think Brissett, that was a one-off – with Belichick is going to bounce back in this kind of rivalry game, then maybe 6 a little high. Cleveland does have a history of covering against Baltimore at times at Baltimore over the last half decade or so. But so I think I would lean towards the under if I had anything on this game.
Yeah, I'm all over the Ravens right here. This is probably my pick of the week for the NFL. I look for them to bounce back big. They've shown the ability to get some real big leads early in games and kind of blow them down the stretch. It's kind of been the theme of their season so far. And I think those players have been sitting in the locker room listening to the media and all that stuff, sitting kind of bash on them all year long on their inability to finish games. And I think they turn it on this week in a division game at home. They get to go back in front of the home crowd, which is always a tough place to play for anybody that goes there. And I like Harbaugh to get it turned around this week. I see the Ravens win this game by a touchdown or more. I really do. So I look for them to bounce back and get a big win this week in a division game.
I mean, they've got Rashad Bateman coming back, but Mark Andrews may not play. He didn't practice today. So, I mean, having issues down there with people to throw to, it's going to be on Jackson to kind of get it going with running. He's been dealing with a hip injury. How mobile and agile and quick is he right now? So I think you're going to have to – it's going to come down to some of those injury issues in this game.
Has Chubb been a top 5 running back from a fantasy perspective this year?
Oh, absolutely. Top 3.
Wow. He's been a monster.
Last week was a little low for him, but I think, I think before that he was bouncing between number 1 and number 2 rusher.
And last week they kind of got behind, had to throw the ball more down the stretch, weren't able to really do what they like to do on offense, which is feed him and have the play action play off of him. So they got kind of behind early last week. And I look for them to get him back rolling this week too. He's just a monster.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 100 yards a game. He's got seven rushing touchdowns on the season. I don't know if he's got any passing or got any receiving yet, but yeah, another great year from Chubb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally, an late afternoon game between the New York Jets, the 4-2 Jets. These New York teams are surprising people this year against the 2-4 Broncos, who have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are coming off back-to-back wins for the first time in a long time. One of the biggest road wins they've had under this coaching staff. Go in and beat the Packers in Green Bay, who are coming off a loss themselves to the Giants in London. Denver only favored by a point. Basically, it's a pick-em ball game. Money line's basically a pick-em game. Total at 38. So they're expecting another low-scoring game involving the Broncos, though this one at least is not at night. Basically a 19-19, 2019, that kind of game. Almost 90% of the tickets are coming in on the Jets on the spread and on the money line. Over 80% coming in on the under. So my free bet of the week is going to be to ride with the Denver Broncos one more time. Take Denver to win straight up at home against the Jets.
Yep, I'm with you on this. I'm all about these Jets. Man, I like the Jets, but they are. I think they come back down to earth this week. I think the Broncos are going to get them a much-needed win at home. Only giving up a point there. I like the Broncos here. You know, the Jets are going to be riding a high, going to Lambeau, getting the win. They never do that. So you know, the Jets are 1-5 against the spread in the last 6 meetings this series heads up, and 1-4 in their last 5 meetings in Denver. And I look for more of the same this weekend. I think the Jets are a good football team and are progressing very well since that first couple weeks debacle they had going on, but they played some good football. But I think they come back down to earth some this week, and I think Denver gets the win straight up at home.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that running game is finally going to take off. You know, we saw Melvin Gordon get a little angry on the sidelines this last week. I think that was blown out of proportion a little bit, but I think he definitely wants to show his potential again. Usually when these things happen with him, he has a big monster week. So I'm looking for him to do that. Hackett's already come and said he's starting. So I look for a big week from him.
There's so much chaos going on in Denver right now. There's the whole Russell Wilson stuff, obviously, but you just mentioned Melvin Gordon. 3 carries for 8 yards in the first half. Doesn't get a touch the second half. Doesn't play. All of a sudden, he gives his post-game interview. I'm healthy. I just didn't want to play him. You don't know why. Then he likes a bunch of tweets about people saying he should ask for a trade. He should ask for a trade on social media. And all of a sudden, he's going to be our starter. So what are you doing? Why? If he's going to be your starter next week, but you didn't feel comfortable enough to put him on the field for a moment in the second half, are you just bowing to the pressure? Is that actually what you want to do? Is that actually what you think is best for the team? Stuff in Denver is not good right now. And
Absolutely.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in this game because those boos are only going to get louder for Russell Wilson as this team continues to flounder.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hackett did have him in his office this week. They apparently hashed out whatever it was. So, and that's when the report came out that he was going to be the starter, was after that meeting that took place in Hackett's office.
Yeah. I imagine it was like, to me, there's no way that was his plan like last week. Right. And it's because all this social media noise that's influencing Nathaniel Hackett in the same way that likely all the noise surrounding Nathaniel Hackett's decisions in the first couple games led him to pass the ball at the end of the game a few days ago. Correct. Or a few weeks ago. So.
Yeah, I think some of his decision making is being driven, unfortunately, by his fears and worries of being fired because it keeps getting worse. And I think the decision making just becomes more and more poor, because of that. But yeah, it's kind of strange watching all this unfold there in Denver, and then seeing a decent team that could be winning from all.
I mean, they just keep finding ways to lose at this point.
Correct.
I mean, up 10-0 in LA, way outplayed Seattle. The way outplayed the Colts. None of those 3 games they should have lost, despite all their problems on offense. The other team was worse in all 3.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I for one, I kind of like Russell Wilson having some struggle right now. I like it. I think it's good for the NFL that Russell Wilson is struggling. Ironically,
a little bit of a German Schadenfreude, as they say.
A little bit. Now another afternoon game. We got the Houston Texans at the Raiders.
Interesting. So Houston travels to Vegas coming off their win 2 weeks ago against the Jags. Vegas favored by 7, total of 45.5. The public's betting Vegas in the over, which is interesting. So they're basically predicting something like a 26-19 game. A little bit high scoring for the Raiders, given how good the Texans defense has been. But the Raiders did go in and put up a bunch of points against the Chiefs. The Raiders offense has seemed to start clicking. But, Lovie Smith has really done some magic with that Texans defense. I don't know if I have a strong lean on this game. I wouldn't rush to the window to bet the Raiders. I wouldn't be scared of betting the Texans, given Lovie Smith has had that team defensively overperforming pretty much all year long. Don't have a strong lean on the total. If anything, I think it's a little bit high.
Yeah, I like the Texans getting 7 right here, man. The road team in this series is 5-2 against spread in the last 7 meetings, and the Raiders are 0-5 in their last 5 games following a bye week. So the Texans have played in pretty much every game they've been in this year, man. They've showed, like you said, Lovie Smith's really got those guys playing at a high level defensively. And I look for more of the same this weekend. I think they're going to come in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them find a way to win this game in Las Vegas. But 7 points is far too many to give this Texans team right here. I like to see them cover this. And like I said, I'm not even mad at sprinkling a little bit on the money line here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the run game in this game right here. Both Pierce and Josh Jacobs have had quietly kind of monster years. Jacobs is definitely back to being a running back RB1 this season, where a lot of people had drafted him at the lower end of the RB2s probably in the drafts this year. But so I'm really interested in watching this run game take place between these two teams.
Yeah, I think Pierce has got to be one of your early rookie of the year candidates, man, for what he's done in that offense this far. I mean, he really is showing the ability to run the football at a high level. And that guy's got to be at the top of the list for rookie of the year right now.
And I assume no suspension for Devontae Adams' criminal charges in Kansas City?
Not as of yet.
I think they're going to let the legal process play out a little bit, which ironically, it's probably what they should do all the time in the NFL. But I do think they're going to kind of let this play out a little bit longer before they make any decisions, from what I heard. It'd probably be a 1-game suspension, if anything.
Yeah, because my understanding is it's Devontae Adams on a cameraman, right? Do I understand that right?
Correct, yeah.
A white cameraman, right?
Yes, indeed.
And so if this was race reversed, if this was a white player who did this to a black cameraman, do we think there would be no suspension?
Well, it'd probably be a whole fucking season, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be ostracized from the league. You'd get the Riley Cooper. He'd get the Riley Cooper treatment probably.
Look at Myles Garrett. I mean, Myles Garrett gets to try to take a quarterback's head off, and he gets out of it by just saying, "Oh man, he called me a racist word." Yeah, right.
He said the N-word as every single black offensive lineman for the Steelers was like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, interesting how that works, isn't it? Now a game, we could see some points in this game. It's a pretty big line on this one. We got the Seahawks headed to LA to play the Chargers.
It's amazing how these totals have spiked. So I had the under last week that cashed pretty easily and pretty early in the Arizona-Seattle game, coming off that crazy Seattle-New Orleans game and that crazy Seattle-Detroit game before that. The Vegas still thinks these games are just going to keep scoring and scoring and scoring. Chargers favored by 6 at home, if you call it a home field. Total at 51. The public is actually leaning towards the under in this one. So they're basically, Vegas is saying it's going to be like 29-23, 28-22, somewhere in that vicinity. And probably a team total of 28.5 for the Chargers, 22.5 for the Seahawks. The public loves Seattle in this game. They're loving the fact that Seattle, did take down Arizona, almost took down New Orleans the week before, that they're liking how they're playing with Geno Smith, especially as they're seeing Russell Wilson struggle. People are now actually saying words like maybe Seattle Pete Carroll is actually an offensive coaching quarterback whisperer. I think that's a little bit of a reach, but it's where the mindset and mentality is. Almost 90% of the public so far betting on Seattle in this game, catching points. Almost 2/3 of the money line coming in on Seattle, catching value on the money line. And then, like I said, going the under route. I kind of share the public's instincts on the under. I don't have a strong lean on the game, however.
Yeah, I'm going to lean under here. I think Vegas is still sold that Geno Smith is going to come out every week and give you what he's been giving you for the first 5 or 6 weeks. And I think he's going to kind of come back down to earth some. that Chargers defense can step up and make some plays. I look for this to be a game. I think that LA probably does get the cover here at home. I know it's not really a normal home game as most teams would get because we know how the Chargers are at home. But I think I got to lean to the under here. 51.5 is a lot of points for an NFL game. And I just don't see these two teams get to that total on Sunday. I really don't.
Geno Smith is a monster. It just took him a long time to find his game. No, I agree. I kind of at some point he's going to come back down to earth here, but the accuracy of his passing this season has been really, really fun to watch, and really came out of left field nowhere. Early on, I was completely wrong about the worst two teams in the NFL being Atlanta and the Seahawks. Both have greatly overperformed what I thought they were capable of doing. With Atlanta, I think it's that O-line, and I think that you have similar stuff going on there in Seattle where Geno's being able to play completely fear-free, and he's having fun, and it shows, and he's connecting with everything.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he can continue that. I do think the loss of Rashad Penny with that leg injury, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, I do think that's going to have some long-term ramifications for them. It took Rashad Penny a while to find his footing in the NFL. Guy that went to San Diego State, was an absolute monster in college. But I think needed to lose a little bit of weight first when he got in the NFL, and he did that, and that speed is there. And I felt like this season was where he was going to take that step, and he had some big games in the first couple, and now he's gone. So Kenneth Walker stepped up last week. I don't know if that continues for them because I do think that's a big important part of Geno Smith's continued success.
Absolutely.
Now we got the Chiefs coming off a rough loss last week to the Buffalo Bills, but the Chiefs are headed to San Francisco, to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara to play the 49ers.
Yeah, that old Super Bowl matchup comeback. So, the Patrick Mahomes travels all the way across the country to San Fran, to the Bay. It's amazing because for a while, San Francisco was getting a lot of love. They get whooped at home. They get whipped on the road by Atlanta. Kansas City loses in the last minute at home to Buffalo. And yet the Chiefs are favored on the road by almost a field goal. Not only that, over 80% of the tickets are coming in on the Chiefs. So it's like all of a sudden everybody loves the Chiefs and doesn't believe in Jimmy G. The total is 48.5, kind of high for a San Francisco game, but kind of low for a Kansas City game. Though the Buffalo-Kansas City game, to the shock of most people, went under last week for pretty rare kind of situation between those two teams. So they're basically predicting something like 25-23 Kansas City win, which is kind of interesting. I think given how much money is pouring in on the Chiefs, I honestly here if that gets up to 3 or more, I'd actually lean towards the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean to the Chiefs here. I looked at the quarterback play in this game, and I just think that Patrick Mahomes will bounce back and outperform Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G's playing great, filling in for Trey Lance. Maybe should have been there all along, but I like the Chiefs in this spot. You don't see this Andy Reid coach teams have bad weeks, back-to-back weeks. You just don't see that very often. And a weird stat, man, the 49ers are 3-13-1 against the spread in their last 17 Week 7 games. So for whatever reason, they just don't tend to play very well in Week 7. I don't know. And the favorite in this series, 4-1 against the spread the last 5 meetings. The Chiefs are 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings in this series. So I look for 3. Anything under a touchdown here, I think you're okay with. Like I said, I look for them to bounce back. Patty Mahomes have another big game. Find Kelsey and company in space to be able to create some things for that offense. And I just like the Chiefs right here. I think anything under a touchdown, I think you're okay taking Kansas City with.
The Chiefs are at -3 now, by the way, Bob. That was my bad beat of the week last week, though, was Buffalo scoring in that last minute and a half. That touchdown killed me. I had a decent-sized bet on the Chiefs' money line. So that kind of killed me from that game. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to see Brandon Ayuk continue his success.
I don't know if that's right. Ayuk. That's what I say.
Continue his success. He was I was big on him last year. He never really took off, and I think this year is really his year to take off. You saw him last week kind of go off, and I'm looking for more of that coming this week.
Yeah, so the Chiefs defense is terrified anybody.
No.
Yeah, they don't really have to with the way they can move the ball in spurts. Now the night game, Sunday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off Mitch Trubisky saving the day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. My man Mitch leading them to victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed down to a Tua Tagovailoa-led Miami Dolphins team. He is supposed to be back. So
I don't know if there was like some curse or what, but these night games have been atrocious this year. And this week we have the Steelers at the Dolphins without Tua for the Dolphins, and the Bears at the Patriots. I mean,
Tua's playing.
Tua is playing. Okay,
Yeah.
so at least there's something to watch. I mean, I guess the Steelers will play Trubisky and let Kenny Pickett stay on the bench. We'll see.
Trubisky is their best option to win. I just think he is because of his he is a playmaker outside the pocket, and he does just have a little more experience than Kenny Pickett. And I think if they want to actually compete for a wild card spot, I think that's the way they got to go.
Yeah, basically the public likes Miami, favored by 7, total of 45. So basically something like 26-19 is the expectation. So obviously they think Tua is just going to come out and click and have no vestigial hangover effect from those concussions, or that the Steelers offense won't repeat what they pulled off in the win last week against Tampa Bay. And the Steelers have been bad on the road. I mean, at least the Buffalo game was embarrassing. So I don't have a strong lean on this one either way. It depends on how much confidence you have that Tua is going to be back to clicking, to the Tua that of those early couple of games, not the Tua of the last several seasons. Under is about 2/3 of the tickets are cashing in on the under, which is interesting. I think that's because of the effect of the Tua injury and the Steelers playing so well defensively last week. Now, 2 weeks ago, on the road, they were an embarrassment defensively against the Buffalo Bills, but they're not expecting the Dolphins to repeat that performance, apparently. I don't have a strong lean on this game one way or the other.
Yeah, this is one that's a weird game. Even if Tua is back, how healthy is he? Can you keep him healthy for 4 quarters? At least he doesn't have TJ Watt chasing him down in some of this game, but they've looked pretty good at home for the most part, especially with him at the helm. I don't have a strong lean in this one. It's be one I'm going to sit back and watch more of it as a fan, because I just want to see if Tua is back, how much does he respond? How much better does that offense look with him out there running the show? And like I said, Trubisky, man, I don't know what I'm going to get out of this guy. I never do. So I don't have a strong lean in this one, man. I'm just going to sit back and watch this one as a fan.
Well, I think it's instantly better. The offense is. I think Hill, or I think Tyreek Hill, and definitely their plays elevated instantly with him being back. And the weird thing for me is the top story right now on ESPN is Tua says he lost consciousness after the hit.
Yeah. It's like the story that they're leading with is Tua doesn't remember. He doesn't remember some of the night. And then like the sub headline is he said he was unconscious for part of it. So, no shit. Is there anyone that thought he was conscious when he was throwing up gang signs? Like, come on, man. Of course he lost consciousness. It's crazy. And that story's not going away. And the fact that they held Tua out an extra game, even though he's completely cleared, that's that is already an effect of these rules. And they tried to hold Lamar Jackson out too. Or not Lamar Jackson, Teddy Bridgewater. They tried to holding Teddy Bridgewater out too, but then he ended up having to go in the game anyway. So it's just silliness. It really
even
is.
Kenny Pickett last week, man, when he went down, it didn't look like he even really banged his head all that hard. They weren't taking no chances with that. It seems like that's going to be the theme of the rest of the season. If you even remotely look like you get hit hard, you're going to have to sit out the rest of the game.
Dangerous precedents to set, for sure. Now, Monday night, again, my Chicago Bears in prime time against Mac Jones and the New England Patriots. Mac Jones should be playing for them, even though they might be tempted to keep in Bailey Zappi there.
A couple of back-to-back wins for Bill Belichick, and everybody's back to betting the Pats. So the Pats are favored by 8 at home, low total 39.5. Basically, they're predicting something like a 24-16 kind of game. You can understand that given a lot of Bears games have gone under this year. The public still is hammering the New England Patriots. Over 80% of the tickets, early action is on New England. The public likes the over, which is kind of interesting. It's probably because it's at 39.5, and the Pats offense has flashed some light, but that was actually under Zappi and not consistently as much under Mac. So I look at this and I don't know if I like this spread one way or the other. It's tough to get to the window with the Bears, given how bad at times Justin Fields is. Tough to really trust the Patriots, though, to put it on anybody with this erratic offense.
Yeah, we're getting to that time of the year where the home field advantage in Foxborough is going to start mattering a little bit more. The weather's going to start taking a turn for the worst up there. So it is going to affect them a little bit more, be more of an advantage for them in those spots. But I'm going to lean toward the under right here. Like I said, both these offenses haven't really showed me enough to show me they're going to give me any fireworks coming in. And Monday night's got that weird kind of aura about it where players tend to, I mean, maybe some play way above their heads and some play way below it, a.k.a. Kirk Cousins. But, yeah, so I don't see a lot of offense coming to this game, man. It's probably going to be another pretty boring primetime game. We've been come pretty accustomed to those this year. But, yeah, I'm going to lean under the 39.5 right here. I love seeing the public all over the over because that makes me feel that much better about it. But, yeah, I got to go under 39.5 right here.
56 degrees with an overcast. Probably shouldn't affect the score too much there, but it eventually will there in Foxborough start getting real cold. So that will be something that later on will maybe making a difference. I'm interested to see Mac Jones coming back. I really need him to do really well. I'm a partial owner in
fumble.
Wow. Cricket's entire background just fell.
Fumble.
Well, a rookie card of his that could actually soar in value if he kind of gets to an AFC championship game. So I really need him to come back and do well.
There you go. Cricket saved the pictures there.
Hey,
so, good job.
That's my dad, man. He played for the Mets back in the early 80s, man. So just give him a little airtime, man. That's all.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I'm keeping an eye actually on the Padres game. The Padres are having a big comeback right now in the bottom of the fifth inning. They put 4 or 5 runs up in the bottom of the fifth, and they're still going against Philly right now. They're leading 7-4.
Wow.
And that is the end of our NFL slate. We did have a super chat from Russ at the Cripple for 5 Raiders fan here. After seeing how the Broncos shut down basically everyone they've played against, our offense seems very good.
I mean, the Raiders have looked better against everybody except the Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos have shut a lot of people down. Unfortunately, they just can't fucking score themselves. That is the main problem for them. And then over on Streamlabs, we do have Zenny Biscuit, which is not about NFL, it's not about college, but as always, it's about horse racing. For $3, she says, all eyes are on the Breeders' Cup. The Classic looks like a race for second. Don't think anyone can touch Flightline, but folks thought Baid was untouchable. He lost his last race. Horse Racing Nation should have the up-to-date odds. Thank you very much, Zenny Biscuit. Appreciate that. Well, now let's move on to the big games that we have in college. We only got 5. Usually we do 10. But we're going to do 5 this week. Again, we got a lot of stuff going on, and we can't let the stream go too long. But there are some pretty big ones, including an ACC matchup between Syracuse and Clemson.
This was not a game anybody had circled before the season. But here you have 2 teams in the top 15. I think Syracuse is overrated. They did beat up on NC State last week, but it was an NC State team coming off a couple of tough back-to-back games with Clemson and Florida State, and with their quarterback knocked out for the year. And there's a massive drop-off between he and the backup, and it showed up. But so Syracuse travels to Clemson. Clemson favored by a little less than 2 touchdowns, 13.5, total at 49.5. So they're basically predicting something like a 30-17 kind of game, 31-17 kind of game, which kind of makes sense on paper because Syracuse defense has overperformed and overachieved, and Clemson has tended to sit on leads that they've established at different points in the game. Public, interestingly enough, is betting on the road dogs, betting on the Qs. Now, the Qs had a history of giving Clemson trouble in Syracuse, not so much on the road. No strong lean on the total. My lean, if any, would be on Clemson. I think Syracuse might get exposed and return to the ranks of the unranked where they probably belong.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think Syracuse had a great season so far. I mean, nobody saw this coming out of them, really. They've looked good. They've looked really good, but they have not fared as well. Haven't looked as sharp away from home. And Clemson, Death Valley going there to play. It's going to be a big game, big-time hype atmosphere. I look for Clemson to really do work in this one. At 13.5, I know it seems like a lot of points for 2 ranked teams playing each other, but I just see Clemson really kind of salting this one away. Maybe close early on, but I look for Clemson to really, the talent to take over. And down the stretch there, getting into that fourth quarter and stuff, I think Clemson's talent really wears them down, and I can see them getting the 2-touchdown victory here.
Yeah, they both played and beat NC State, and Syracuse had the greater margin of victory. But I think this is the week Syracuse gets exposed, and I think not only does Clemson win, they cover that 13.5.
There's a history of Clemson doing this in past seasons. Prior to last year, they tend to start the season slow and then start killing people down the stretch.
It's the right time to do it again, up against number 14 Syracuse. Now we're going for a Pac-12 matchup. I think the sole undefeated Pac-12 team left, UCLA, heading up to Oregon.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, with USC losing on that last-second 2-point conversion by Utah, credit to Kyle Whittingham for pulling that out. Oregon favored heavy in this game to some degree. Oregon favored by 6 there in Eugene. Big total, 70.5. They're basically predicting something like a 38-31 kind of game. Understandably, given UCLA's offense has been very good at times, its defense very sketchy at times, and Oregon the same. Now, Oregon's run defense has been a little bit better at times than their pass defense this season, though UCLA has put up more impressive numbers. Public's betting UCLA so far. 60% of the tickets are on UCLA. A lot of them, the people that are betting UCLA love the money line. Almost all the tickets are coming in on the over. People are expecting this to be in the 40s rather than the 30s. My own view, I'm curious to see how Oregon has started to pick up. And, they had some little hiccups there. I mean, obviously the bad start against Georgia, but they really played pretty consistent and pretty well with little bit moments of shakiness. UCLA played great against Utah, but if you look at earlier in the season, this is a team that probably should have lost at home to South Alabama. So I don't know if I'd rushed with the window with UCLA, but 6 points in the Pac-12 between comparably competitive teams is probably a little much. I don't know yet which way I would lean on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on the over on this one. We talked about that Oregon, the win for Georgia against Oregon, the really pummeling of the first week of the season continues to look better and better each week as we go on. But UCLA's offense with that quarterback, man, he is playing some great football. I think Dorian Porch, I think that's his name, but they've looked great, man, on the offensive side of the ball. And I look for some more fireworks come Saturday night in Eugene. I could see this being like a 44-41 type final, something like that. So I'm going to go over the 70.5 right here. And I look for a lot of fireworks coming from this game on Saturday night. Or excuse me, Saturday afternoon. It's 3:30 kickoff, so Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it will be Chip Kelly's return to Oregon with DTR. I mean, who's been, I think, his 5th season. You got a lot of these college football players are in season 5, season 6, season whatever because of the COVID season extension that everybody got.
Right.
I'm a cricket. I like
see more balding college football players right now than you usually do because of some of those extensions. So,
right.
I'm with cricket on the over there. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of fireworks in this game, a lot of high power offense.
Well, there you go. Next one up on the slate. We're ahead of the Big 12, which is still silly to call it the Big 12 when. Man, how many teams are committed to be there over the next couple of years? Maybe 4.
7.
Yeah, exactly. Texas head to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, Texas should have lost last week for people who didn't see that game. The Iowa State outplayed them on the field the entire time. But on top of that, Iowa State has a NFL caliber receiver who was so excited at the end of the game to catch the winning touchdown pass so wide open that he decided to jump up and down to catch the pass and then dropped it on his way down because he jumped up. So Texas was lucky to win, even though they were 17-point favorites. So probably because of that, the Cowboys themselves coming off a blown game against TCU where they had a nice lead in Fort Worth and blew it. Basically, Texas favored by 6.5. 2/3 of the tickets are coming in on Oklahoma State, total at 61, which is kind of low for the Big 12 this year, given a complete lack of defense or consistent defense by pretty much anybody, including even teams people thought would be decent defensively like Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Baylor. So they're basically predicting something like 33-27, 34-27, something in that neighborhood. They're expecting Quinn Ewers to get back to clicking, even though he struggled at times against Iowa State's containment-style defense. Oklahoma State's secondary has not been great at times. That's what TCU exploited late in the game. Talent-wise, would lean you towards Texas, but I think the line is probably about accurate. Same with the total, except maybe lean over just because neither one of these defenses has shown consistent dominance.
Yeah, this is a game I'm very interested to see this weekend. I want to see how Oklahoma State responds to the big letdown at TCU last week. They pretty much had that game in control for most of the game and wound up finding a way to lose it at the end there. I don't really know how they did that. I was too busy watching the Tennessee-Alabama fiasco to really get to see much of that one. But, man, I like Oklahoma State getting 6.5 right here at home. I think any of these teams, this is a game that's going to have major implications on who plays in the Big 12 title game at the end of the year. So there's a lot riding on this game. It's a 3:30 kickoff, so you don't have the nighttime atmosphere But I like Oklahoma State right here. I think you buy the hook up to 7, get a touchdown to save you right there. But I like Oklahoma State in this one. I would not be surprised to see them come back and bounce back and win this one outright.
I'm with Robert here. I think the spread's right where it should be, and the total as well. But I will mention that last week that TCU comeback was definitely a bad beat for a lot of Oklahoma State money line holders.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, the whole Big 12 thing, I'm pretty checked out at this point because I don't think there's anybody that's gonna make the run. So they're just kind of fighting for pickings here. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, interesting to see how this game turns out. Kansas State at TCU, another Big 12 matchup.
Yeah, TCU undefeated. In conference play. So TCU is the only team left that could make a playoff run, which is kind of wild in Sonny Dykes' first season. But the TCU's favorite at home, get 3 by 3.5, 54.5 total. Respect for Kansas State's defense, I think, is what that reflects. So they're basically predicting something like a 28-25, somewhere in that kind of 29-26 kind of score. They're not expecting either team to really get into the 30s. TCU, they're basically saying this is an even team given home field to TCU, which is a lot of respect because for Kansas State's offense, after what looked like, hey, maybe they're explosive after that game against Oklahoma's defense can't stop anybody. Couldn't stop Kansas, couldn't stop TCU, couldn't stop Texas. They can't stop anybody. They're just awful and atrocious. Whatever's happened, the wheels have fallen off. They look temporarily good against Nebraska, and that's turned out not to mean a lot. So given that, I would actually probably lean towards TCU in this game if I had a lean.
Yeah, I'm going to lean toward the over in this one. Looks like it opened about 59. It's all the way down to 54.5. So, I mean, the public's really piling on that under. Martinez has showed the ability for Kansas State at quarterback to really be able to be a game breaker in spots. Really kind of took it to Oklahoma at Oklahoma, which I know that's not saying much right now. But TCU's offense clearly has the ability to score. Max Duggan's playing some of the best football in the country right now. Sonny Dykes really loves him. And he's just playing some good football, always giving his team a chance to win. Guy fights to the end. I mean, just a real ball player. And I like the over right here. I'm going to go over 54.5 because I do think we see some fireworks. This is another game in Big 12 that we could really play into who plays in the Big 12 title game. I think it's way more open than we expected to be at this stage in the season. But I look for another good game on Saturday night there. And I'm going to lean toward the over right here and give us a lot of points. And I think over 54.5 is where I'm going to go in this one.
I wasn't aware of the drop in the over-under. That does look kind of intriguing, dropping that low. But I like TCU in the points here for sure. I think they win this game by a touchdown.
And then in our last game of this week, it's never fun to play Alabama the week after they lose. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, that doesn't usually end up well. And Mississippi State has the pleasure of heading to Tuscaloosa on Saturday.
And, the Mike Leach's crew is coming off a loss at Kentucky. Will Levis came back, controlled that game for the most part. And what Mississippi State showed was a problem getting past good disciplined defenses, which has been a Mike Leach weak link his entire coaching career, which is his system works when he has more talent than the other side or when the defense isn't disciplined. But when he faces a disciplined defense, just go back and look at Washington State against Washington. Every single year, Washington held Washington State under Mike Leach. It's like 16 points, 17 points, et cetera. Last year, Alabama smacked Mississippi State around. So Bama, unsurprisingly, coming off a loss with 17 penalties, set a record for the number of penalties at Alabama in the modern era, is favored by 21. So, and despite that, 60% of the money is still coming in on Bama. Most of the money line, which is a very heavy money line, is coming in on Bama. They do favor the over 60.5, 61, depending on where you got it. It's floating in that territory. Basically, they're predicting 41-20. And maybe that's a lot of respect for Alabama's offense because Mississippi State's defense has been better than like Tennessee's defense has been. And A&M held, now granted, backup quarterback, Alabama to 24 or so. So I'm not sure they're just going to go in there and ratchet up those points. So if I have any lean in this game, it's toward the under. Tough to bet on Bama as a 3-touchdown favorite.
Yeah, like you said, Ryan, you never want to play a Nick Saban team that's coming off of a loss, especially a loss like that last weekend. I think it's probably a pretty somber campus in Tuscaloosa this week and a very business-as-usual-like approach. They know they still got a lot to play for. They still control their own destiny and all that stuff. And you're not going to see, I mean, after the last 2 weeks, losing at Tennessee and then having the potential to lose at home to A&M, I look for them to be ready to go this weekend, and I could see them covering the 21 right here. I might buy it down to 20.5 just so 3 touchdowns got it for me. But I think you're going to see a different Alabama team come out this week, and really I feel bad for the Bulldogs having to go to Tuscaloosa and deal with that this weekend.
Yeah, and news came out today on multiple sites that Mississippi State lost a football player today, passed away. Sam Westmoreland. I'm not sure he was really relevant in the scheme of play, but that's always unfortunate to hear. But it was very strange reading the article. It was just saying that the sheriff's department and the office of the medical examiner was gathering information on the death, which was kind of disturbing. Like we don't know what happened at all, which led to all kind of weird thoughts in my head. I was like, oh no, did Leach put somebody in a closet again? So but who knows how that's going to affect the game there, though.
But there's something else that's a far more common cause lately of athletes in the prime of their lives and the peak of their lives just suddenly dropping. So no ideas what's going on with him. That's the first I heard of it, but I just looked him up. He's a freshman offensive lineman. I don't know if he's a guy that gets any play time, but
he's just 18.
It's terrible to hear.
Former walk-on, I believe, had been a pretty good player in the high school ranks down there and stuff, and got a chance to walk on. Just real tragic story, man. Real tragic.
Yeah, that's rough. But yeah, when it does come to Alabama and that loss, I think that could end up being the thing that wins them national championship. That loss against Tennessee could be the thing that locks them in and changes them. And
don't say that. We don't want to help them do anything.
I'm just saying. That just is so Alabama. That's so Nick Saban. That's a Nick Saban team right there that would take that very close loss and turn that into something very positive.
I mean, I still think it's Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are your plus 300 to win the national title. Because Alabama, Mississippi State's down. Ole Miss, we'll see if Ole Miss is good. They play at LSU this week. Expect to be a tight game. We'll see how they do. But I'm not convinced that Ole Miss is in a position to knock off Alabama. So Alabama's only weakness is really its secondary, and the benefit for them is they're not going to play. And Mississippi State plays a short passing game, not a deep passing game. The only other team they're going to play like that is likely in the SEC title game against Georgia or Tennessee, whoever wins that game. So if now that's their big risk is if they lose that one, now they're out because 2 losses and they're finished. And then Tennessee would have an outside shot even if they lost to Georgia, but they would need Alabama to lose that game probably. But some people were talking about Ohio State or Michigan, if they lose, are going to leapfrog Tennessee. No, that's not happening, folks. Big Ten is down this year. It's not very strong. So if Tennessee only has 1 loss, a very, very big if, and there's 3 one-loss teams at the end of the year in the SEC, all 3 are going in. That's in all likelihood. It'll be big controversy if it doesn't.
Yeah, Tennessee became the first team ever to go 6-0, beat 4 top 25 AP opponents, and score 30-plus points in their first 6 games ever in college football. So
Michigan's beat one team, Penn State, that appears to be down.
Right.
Yeah, I think that there's no justification for putting in a 1-loss Michigan team ahead of any of those other teams with 1 loss. It just doesn't make any sense strength to schedule wise. But crazy things happen.
No doubt.
Eric K with 5 Sports Wars gift subs. Thank you very much, Eric. And then Mike Hill for $5. Did you see Alabama play? Did you see Alabama player maybe slapped a Tennessee female fan's head after the game last week? I didn't.
I've heard about this. I haven't seen the video, man, but I have heard about this. Salty Bama fans, man.
This sounds like an Alabama player.
Yeah, no, it was a wide receiver. Something going. I don't know though, man. How can you that's kind of the reason they want to keep those fans off the field in moments like that. You got a super emotional player that's trying to get out of that crowd and stuff.
And she was probably talking some smack.
Yeah, I'm a Tennessee fan, and I didn't want to go down into that crowd. So I can't imagine being an Alabama player and having to deal with that.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That's a once in a lifetime chance, man. I go down there, start smoking cigars. I'd be carrying that freaking field goal post out. I'd do everything, man.
Don't worry, man. I had my fun.
That's good. That's good.
I think this is going to be a more prevalent storyline that we see throughout this season in both college and NFL. To start with I can't remember the guy's name who tackled the player that ran on the field. And then we got Devontae Adams pushing the cameraman. I think
Bobby
this is going to be
Wagner.
a common theme that we see throughout. Yeah, Bobby Wagner. This is a common theme we're going to see throughout this year in both the NFL and now starting to see it here in college.
Well, I just thought it was hilarious, man. Like about the fourth quarter starts, they bring out like 70 security guards. I mean, they're probably paying these guys like $10 an hour, and they're going to stand them all on the side. Like, you're going to stop these 100,000 fans from getting onto that field if we do win this game.
By the end, they were helping them carry the field goal post out of the stadium.
Right.
They were just as excited as anybody else. So yeah, that was cool. But when it does come to fan interactions, it's been an accelerating thing, especially as more NBA players try to utilize racial tensions or racial divides. You know, oh, kick this guy out. He said something racially motivated towards me. Oh, LeBron James kicking people out of games that are sitting there on the sidelines because he's too much of a fucking pussy to handle it. You know, like that is a common theme that I think we're going to continue to see more of. You know, when it comes to these types of interactions.
Absolutely.
But that is going to be it for us today, gentlemen. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Cricket, Cody, always good talking to you guys, especially after a big Tennessee win. I know you guys are excited.
That's right.
And Robert, where can people go if they want to know all the inside information for all these picks?
Absolutely. We are had 7 quarters of betting so far this year, bet over 350 tickets, bets, and promos given out. And we've had 6 winning quarters up on the season, over a 60% profit rate just already this year in football betting. We put out bets on the English Premier League, on college football, in the NFL. When we put out bets like teasers, we put out bets on team totals. It's a wide range of it. We have on average over 60 bets that we give out each week. And it is one of the most affordable memberships you can join for free. And if you want the picks and given out, we give out free picks too. But if you want the full picks, you can get those for the low cost of $10 a month, whereas most handicappers sell those for $10 a pick. So we are the most affordable, most profitable sports handicapping service out there. So you can get all of that at sportspicks.locals.com. And for those that just like to cash in on the free bets, yet to lose here on Against the Spread. And remember, that is that the Denver Broncos win straight up against the New York Jets.
There you go. Those have been very, very profitable if you guys have been taking these bets of the week. So definitely check that one out. Chat, thank you guys, everybody on YouTube, everybody on Rumble. We appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to us. An early stream, to be sure, not usually this time, but it will be back to the normal time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific next week. Thank you guys. We will talk to you later. Peace.
Chill out.